to interrupt at any time. Okay, so again, Alan Chalker, I'm with OSC, and I'm one of the co-PIs on the OpenOnDemand project. It is a NSF-funded project that we're working jointly with the University of Buffalo and Virginia Tech on. So let's go ahead and if I can get my slide to advance, there we go. High-level picture. What the heck is OpenOnDemand? Well, we like to say it's open interactive HPC via the web. So it's a open source platform that you can install at your center that facilitates web-based access to supercomputers. Provides everything you need in terms of file management, command line shell access, job management, interactive desktop, all that stuff. We'll get into and I'll show you on it. And it's really a way for clients to interface very seamlessly with your systems and kind of lower the barrier to entry. And to prove that, I just want to talk a little bit about the impact it's had at OSC. So on the left-hand side of the screen is our time to science chart that we did as part of getting our most current NSF grant. We looked at, over the course of a year, about 1,700 new OSC clients, and we broke them into two groups, those that came right in via OnDemand and those that came right in via traditional methods like SSH. And as you can see on this chart, the clients that came in via OnDemand started significantly earlier in terms of their first login and their first job submission compared to more traditional SSH clients. On the right-hand side, you're seeing some stats for our OnDemand platform that we launched in the fall of 2016, and kind of the year and a half after that. You can see that the vast majority of our clients at OSC now access us purely via OnDemand as opposed to traditional SSH. And that's something that we've seen other centers as well. That's not unique to OSC on there. In terms of current deployments, we have two ways of kind of tracking that. The first is via RPM logs. So most people, I'll tell you, I'm going to pull this up as well because I see we've got the call doc on, and I want to make sure that I'm monitoring that. So sorry. Okay, there we go. So that's in the chat. If you guys didn't see that, it's a Google Doc link in chat. So via our RPM logs, we're able to geolocate IP addresses of people that are pulling the RPMs, and this is a map of last calendar year, about 130-something unique locations around the country. Download the RPM. We had about 70 unique international locations. Now, we don't know exactly what those locations are. We just have IP addresses from that. But what we do have is we do have some institutions self-identify. And so if you go to the OpenOnDemandorg website, which I'll show you here in a second, we do put logos up of institutions that we know are either have production deployment or in process of installing it. There's one ask I have of you. I would say, please, if you are in either of those categories and your logo is not on this, please, please, please let me know through some mechanism, because at the end of the day, NSF is funding us to create this open source community and this platform, and we really want to report back to NSF how the community is growing and who's using us on there. So that's kind of that. And then I'll also have an ending slide on this, but really anything you want to know about OnDemand, you go to OpenOnDemand.org. And I'm actually going to flip over there for a second here if I can figure out, how to do that. Let's see, there we go. So this is our website, OpenOnDemand.org. A few things I'll point out on here. The first one is, if you have any questions, we really encourage you to use our Discourse instance right here, Discuss on Discourse. It's basically a message board, And the reason we encourage you to do that is because A, you can search for old announcements, but B, by putting something up there, you start a new thread that maybe will help somebody else in the future. And it's not just my colleagues on the project that are answering. Because the community is relatively large, it's not unusual for other center sysadmins and people to jump in and say, oh yeah, this is how we do this here. So it's very much a community in that form. We do have the documentation that is primarily targeted at how to install and configure OpenOnDemand. I will preface this by saying that if there's one area that we're very weak on, it's consistent and robust documentation. So there might be things that I talk about today or that you see or hear other people talk about that is not in the documentation. I'm sorry about that. Let us know. We're trying to get better on that. And then obviously we have the GitHub source on that as well. So let me jump back into the PowerPoint. We do have a mailing list you can subscribe to that we send out announcements every now and then. Also, if you sign up for Discourse, you can get digest announcements from Discourse. And then the webinars, we try to have webinars roughly quarterly on there. Okay, I want to spend just a real brief amount of time talking about kind of a little bit of the technical stuff behind the scenes here and explain what the kind of secret recipe or special sauce is. So this is a diagram, and by the way, the slide deck, the paper about this, other, I'll just flip back over there, other things like webinars and recordings are all available on our front page. So you can see if you scroll down here, I've got webinars that I've done. I've got a live demo that I'm going to give you here in a second, but if you want to see it, it's on there. We have all of our publications in terms of papers, proceedings, presentations on here as well. Okay, so what's the architecture? What's the special thing about OnDemand? So the first thing is on the client side, it's zero installer. It uses HTML5 standards. You don't have any plugins. You can connect to an OnDemand instance from virtually any client, and that's quite true. I've seen pictures of grad students sitting in a bar with a pint of beer in one hand and their cell phone in the other hand, actually logged into OnDemand and doing supercomputing. Now, at least here in Ohio, it's not against the law to drink and compute. I don't necessarily condone it, but we know people are doing that. So when you connect in, what you're connecting to is a lightweight Apache instance that's running as the Apache user that serves two primary functions. The first one is it authenticates the user. If there's one area that is kind of the challenging part of setting up OpenOnDemand, it's generally the user authentication. And that's because every site has their own little flavor and different spin on this. We've supported user authentication, you name it, Active Directory, LDAP, two-factor authentication, CAS, Duo, things like that. Pretty much it's been done at this point, but everybody has their own little tweak on it, and that's usually what causes a little bit of just difficulty in setting it up. I will say that a skilled sysadmin, we've been told, generally can get OpenOnDemand fully configured in an afternoon. It's not a heavy lift. And I want to reemphasize that we have an NSF grant. NSF is paying us to build this community, and part of that is providing support. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than willing, if you give us a user account on your system, to help facilitate the install and do quite a bit of the install ourselves. and we've done that on numerous occasions. So once you authenticate, that Apache instance is basically serving as a reverse proxy. And what happens then is on your actual server backend, which is typically a login node, most people have it actually, it's a VM, a pretty lightweight VM. At OSC, it's I want to say something on the order of like 16 virtual cores and like 60 gigs of memory or something like that. We have it on the documentation, but you can do very lightweight VM for your actual host. That host just needs to be like, you need to treat it like a login node. So it needs to have access to the file system, and that's basically it. So once you log in, what's happening is your users, for example, if I log in, and I'll show you this in a second, Alan C as a user is launching some stuff that's an Nginx passenger stack that's showing you the everything that you get. And so what that means is that we don't have to worry about special user configuration or authentication. It's all inherent in your underlying user groups and permissions and all of that. So the security is just whatever your existing system security is. We have been audited by the Trusted CI, which is another NSF center, and they've given us a pretty good bill of health. But what this really means is people inevitably will ask me, can you do X with OpenOnDemand? And the general rule of thumb answer to that is, if you can do X right now on your system as a regular user, maybe a sophisticated, knowledgeable user, but as a regular user, then yeah, you can do it with OpenOnDemand. Because OpenOnDemand is just essentially putting a nice GUI and scripts around what are command line things that your clients are already able to do. So that's really the secret sauce, the secret recipe behind the scenes of OpenOnDemand. Always want to point out branding, because that's something that's very important to most sites. So you can do just a ton of different branding. You can see here I've got 3 different screenshots of 3 different brands. We've got the OSC On Demand, the Pittsburgh Bridges On Demand, and then a generic out-of-the-box OpenOnDemand. But message of the day, announcements, colors, all kinds of stuff can go on there. And you'll see a little more of that in a second, and that's in the docs. I do want to talk briefly about our current project. So OpenOnDemand was previously released under an NSF award. There's a 3-year award that ended about 2 years ago. And we applied for and were awarded a CSSI 5-year award to develop OnDemand 2.0. Now, everybody inevitably asks, when are you releasing OnDemand 2.0? We're about to release 1.7, I believe it is. Don't worry about 2.0. It's more of a marketing thing. We'll get around to it probably at some point in the next 6 months or so, but it's not like you need to wait for 2.0 because there's something magical happening. We're putting major releases, features, and things into the releases that come out. We generally have them about 3 times a year here. So we have a 5-year project. We've got several years left on this current award, so we're not going away. Again, NSF is funding us. We're going to be supporting and developing it. And when we talk about the project, we talked about 4 general areas we're working on, these catchy words: visibility, scalability, accessibility, and engagement. Now, real quick, just kind of talk through what those mean from the bottom up. Engagement is what I'm doing right now. It's what I've been talking about. We want to build this community. We want you to really ask us questions. We want to help out. We want to hear what features should be added. Scalability and accessibility are kind of 2 sides of one coin. So scalability is focusing mainly on the server, the back-end stuff, making sure that we can support different resources. So, for example, one thing that we're actively engaged on is the fact that we got an award from SGCI and Google to make an OpenOnDemand deployable Google Cloud instance. We're making great progress with that, and that should be released in the coming months. But we really want to run on a variety of resources, load balancing, just things like that. We recently have developed support for Kubernetes, for example. That's under the scalability. Accessibility is the other side of that. That's the front end, the user interface, making sure that we are supporting a variety of communities and scientists. We couldn't have foreseen 3 or 4 years ago when we were applying for our original NSF grant the rise in Jupyter, for example. Everybody knows Jupyter is just a big product out there that a lot of scientists are using. At the perk session last July, there was a Jupyter BOF, and halfway through the BOF, the moderator stopped and said, "I'm amazed at the number of times I'm hearing you all mention OpenOnDemand. By raise of hand, how many of you are running OpenOnDemand so that your clients can utilize and access Jupyter Hub or Jupyter Lab?" And more than half the room raised their hand. They said that was their preferred way of providing Jupyter access to their client base. And then visibility real quick, I want to talk about this one with the next slide. And the visibility is basically, we're going to be integrating with OpenXDMod. If you're not familiar with OpenXDMod, this is a little advertisement and pitch for it. It's another NSF-funded project that's maintained by the University of Buffalo. It stands for XD Metrics on Demand. It was originally developed to support the NSF Exceed system. And it basically is a way to, it just collects all kinds of data, utilization, infrastructure, things like that, off of your cluster. It's in use by hundreds of institutions around the world. And what's coming in the very, very near future, it's actually, the support for this is already in the most recent version of XDMod, and we just now have to support it in OpenOnDemand, and we have it in beta testing, is if you have XDMod installed on your system and you have OpenOnDemand installed on your system, the two will talk and know about each other. And you will see, when you log into OpenOnDemand, you will see graphs and stats and things that are being pulled from your XDMod installation. Eventually, we want to have kind of a dashboard that has some intelligence and is proactively giving clients information about their jobs and their efficiencies and things like that. So that's coming soon, and this is a picture of that. Okay, I have some slides here on a walkthrough, but I'm actually going to go against all common sense and do a live demo. So warning, you know, danger Will Robinson, live demo here. So what I did before I, excuse me, what I did before I got on here is I just went to ondemand.osc.edu, which is our live instance, and it presented me with a login page that I just logged in, and it dropped me then into this page. So everything that I'm seeing now is running as me on OSC systems. There, you know, Alan C, we could go and look at the processes and see that there's an Nginx and there's a whole stack here that's being presented to me. So everything, I'll just kind of walk through here. The things that I see are not necessarily what one of my colleagues would see, because using secondary group permissions, we can dynamically generate different menu items on here. You see we've got a message of the day that's being pulled in from the system. We also have this alert that we've put up here so everybody knows kind of just what our operational status is because of COVID. Okay, so first I'm going to go to files. Now, if you notice, as I click on the file menu here, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to increase my zoom just because I know some of you might have some small screens, so hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Okay, so files here, you see it populates with home directory, project scratch, and various groups. And again, if one of my colleagues logs in, they would see different groups here because they have different group memberships. So I'm just going to click on my home directory, and it's going to open in a new tab, me browsing my remote home directory on the systems. All the things you'd expect to be able to do here, you can do in terms of downloading files, moving files, viewing files, copying, uploading. In general, at OSC and many other centers, we encourage clients, if they want to transfer files up to about 10 gigabytes in size, to use this interface, not to use things like, say, PuTTY or FileZilla or SCP. This interface actually is significantly faster because of the way the network is tuned. It's almost twice as fast for uploading or downloading multi-gig files than through something like SCP or SFTP. One of the things that we have in here is the ability to have a lightweight file editor. So I'm going to just scroll down here to a Python file. Here's a Python file, and I'm going to hit edit. And you'll see this is a Python-aware editor that is doing the appropriate contextual highlighting. And if I were to make changes to this and save it, it would be saving it directly in my home directory. I don't have to download anything. So this is really helpful for people. Okay, so that's the file browser, file editor. I'm going to now jump over, and I'm going to talk here over the next 15 minutes or so about 3 general ways of using resources in our mind. So the first way is your traditional SSH. So I'm going to go to clusters here. We name our clusters after famous Ohioans. So we have Jesse Owens. I'm going to click on Owens Shell Access, and you can see it'll be in the browser. I'm dropped into the login node. Who am I? I'm Alan C. What's my host name? I'm on login node number 4. No login was required. It just dropped me straight into that if you want to do various terminal access. I'll leave that. The other thing that we have under here is our system status app. At OSC, we currently run Ganglia, although we're in the process of moving to Prometheus with Grafana. And so what this is an app that's pulling data from Ganglia because we let our clients jump between clusters. It's showing the current status of those clusters in terms of number of nodes they're running, number of jobs they're queued, number of GPUs that are in process. This is a good example of something that the GPU part of this is not in the open source version yet. We very much believe in eating our own dog food, so we test out features. But if you want this, you can pull it into your version before we release it. Just ask. We have a collaboration with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is very interested in supporting OpenOnDemand, and they've been helping us develop certain functionality. And this is one of the things that we kind of were talking to them about. So if I click here on Pitzer, it'll actually then drop me into actual Ganglia graphics as to what's going on with that. Okay, so that's the first way of kind of accessing resources, traditional SSH. The second way is through what we call our job composer. Now, job composer is one of these things that there are a lot of feelings, both pro and con, about in the community. We are probably going to be doing a major revamp of it based on feedback we've been getting, but I'll go ahead and walk through what this is. So this is a way to basically create and monitor and submit batch jobs without having to actually go to the command line. So for a new client coming in, we encourage them to go to New Job, Template, and we have, at least here at OSC, templates, default templates for all of our major software packages. You see I've got, just as I click through here, different things. So I'll just click on Python serial job on Owens. And you see as I click on it, the right-hand changed a little bit. It says, okay, do you want to create this? What cluster? What's some details of that template? Go ahead and create this job. So now what's happened is I have a new basic Python serial job. These are all my different jobs stacking up here. It's giving me some information on the job. It's a hello world. I can click on this and I can open it in that editor. You can see here it is just a hello world Python job. If I really want to, I can see what the script is. I can edit that script. I can actually also open in terminal directly into that directory and see I'm in some strange directory, and there's that hello world job. When I'm ready, I could just go and hit submit and submit this job, and it would run and be submitted to the queue. I could create a template from it when a job is done. I got to scroll down because I got a lot of jobs, I do a lot of demos. So here's a job that's completed that I ran. And you can see here now it's got an output that I can look at and edit. And so I scroll down through all the information. There you go. There's the hello world of that output on there. So this is a good way for clients to just kind of go through and edit jobs and job options, things like that on here. We also have under the jobs menu, we have our active jobs app. And this is basically doing a queue stat. So it's allowing me to browse what's happening with the queue right now. Now, it's a little bit more fancy than that. I'm looking at everybody's jobs on all clusters. So I'll just pick this first job that's pulled up here. And this is a parallel job. I can see that this job has asked for 96 hours of wall time, 40 nodes, and it's used 59 hours. And then as I scroll down, we're seeing the ganglia graphics for each node. This is really good and helpful for debugging because you can see if you're starving a parallel job in some form or fashion on there. Okay, so that was the second way of kind of accessing. The third and final way that we saved the best for last here is our interactive apps. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to ask for a shared interactive virtual desktop. Just ask for 1 hour. I'll hit launch. And behind the scenes, it's queuing it's doing that job. And while we're doing that, I'm going to ask also for a MATLAB job. You can see there's more options here, different versions of MATLAB, number of hours, number of cores, different node types. All this is customizable by the sysadmins. You see, while we were waiting, my virtual desktop job already started here. It says running. And then I'm also going to ask for a Jupyter job to show you Jupyter. So I've got these all stacked up. They're all queued. In fact, MATLAB already started running because the system's wait low a little bit. And we'll see that start. Okay, so let's start down here with the virtual desktop. You see that I've been assigned this on host 0808. That's Owens 808. So if I wanted to SSH directly into that, here you go. I've dropped on into it for some reason. Normally you wouldn't need to do that, but it's there for you. We have some options here in terms of compression and image quality. So I'm going to start with low compression, high image quality, and I'm going to hit launch Owens VDI. And you'll see what's going to happen here is I am now connected to a virtual desktop on this node, and I can drag things around. Now, it's probably hard to tell because I'm doing this over WebEx, but the quality is pretty good, not really any latency on this. But one of the things I can do is if you were having issues, I can drop out of here, and you can come back and you can say, okay, let's increase the compression and reduce the image quality because I have a lower bandwidth or something like that. And now when I launch into there, I'm getting a little bit of some pixelation on here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can't read as well. And that's just a way to adjust based upon your network bandwidth and the quality that you need. Now, inevitably, a user goes and says, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. My computer's telling me to bash it right now. Calls up the help desk. What do I do? Well, we have this thing called a view-only shareable link. So the help desk will say, okay, copy and email me your view-only shareable link. And as another user on the system, I can get in and connect to the exact same situation, the exact same instance that you're in, same VNC server, and I can see exactly what you're doing and walk you through. I can't edit it, I can only see it, but I can walk you through what's going on the screen for you. So that's what that's for. Now let me launch the MATLAB one. What's happening here is instead of having a desktop, we have a full MATLAB instance. And I'm going to go ahead and do the peaks function. I always love to do this demo. Keep in mind, I am doing a WebEx or a Zoom here. I'm at home, connecting remotely, lots of bandwidth things. This is not this is a shared node. This is not no graphics card or anything like that. Yet I can do 3D rendering with no latency at all on here. So the performance is really, really good on that. Now, if I were to go on here and close out of MATLAB, I always have difficulty where to find how you close out of MATLAB. Or here, I'll just do this right here. Close out of MATLAB. What happens is it's going to take a second and it's disconnected because there was no desktop to fall back on. We were only launching MATLAB. They can't get into other software in that sense. And you'll notice here, this is actually going to go away. There, it just went away because I essentially deleted my session on there. Now the final one I want to show you is Jupyter. Jupyter in this case does not require, it's a GUI, but doesn't require its own VNC connection because it has its full web stack. So if you notice the icon's a little different here, it says connect to Jupyter. When I connect to Jupyter here, it's launching a full Jupyter session as my user. So here you go, I'm in a Jupyter notebook. I didn't have to do anything special, it's just there. I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes with this. Don't have to worry about user management or anything like that. Okay, so that's, and again, different users logging into our system will see different things over here, depending upon what secondary group permissions they might have. We also have, just to give you an idea, we have lots of different ways to kind of skin or brand this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect to stats, which is an on-demand, and there you go, here's the login instance. It's a separate on-demand instance that we run for some statistics classes at OSU. And those statistics professors don't want those users to have everything. They only want them basically to have, you see some useful links. Here's their textbooks. And then they want them to be able to jump just straight into RStudio without having really many options they have to pick. Just how many hours do they want for RStudio. So this is, you know, branded a bit differently. It doesn't have all those other interactive apps on it. Very easy to do that. The other one I want to show you real quick is Awesome. So our commercial program, we just branded Awesome. And we have a dashboard for our commercial clients that looks a little bit different. You see we have little different icons on here. And these are different apps that have been shared with me. So for example, EWI, they developed a welding simulation app using the OnDemand platform. And then they have shared that with various clients, including me. So a client can come in and see, I just want to do the weld predictor. This one's pretty cool in terms of just to give you an idea of how robust these apps and app development can be within OnDemand. And it's going to take a second here because remember, it's firing up behind the scenes as me. But this is all, again, within the browser, has the ability to kind of have a smart GUI walkthrough type thing that eventually it'll start. Sorry. That'll, hello. Let me redo it. So let's see if it'll start. There we go. So I'll go ahead and create a new simulation here just to give you a feel for how sophisticated you can create these apps. So this is, I don't know anything about welding, but it's going to walk me through, hey, what do you want to call this? What type of technique? What other dimensions you want to have? Do I want to have a pipe versus a T-plate? Okay, there you go. I'll pick a T-plate. What's the geometry you want to have? There we go. Whatever geometry. And then you can actually go and create your welds. And you see in the browser here, I'm creating the geometry and dragging and dropping things around. What's the material you want? So then you'd step through all of this, hit save. It would create some sort of simulation that then gets submitted to Abacus. So pretty sophisticated with that. Okay, I want to just have a few more quick slides, and then we'll open up for questions. So this is in case my walkthrough didn't work. So here's the kind of the final slide is items coming soon. We actually developed this last July for PERC, and I haven't updated it because we're still working on these. But this is just a list of items that we are working on in some form or fashion. Many of these are already available. I'm not going to go through this list, but I wanted you to get a kind of a feel for the types of things that are on our roadmap, and happy to talk about any of these in particular if you have particular questions. My final slide was just the find out more. So with that, I'm happy to open it to questions. I don't see any in chat. Let me see if there was any in the document. Okay, yeah, let me just go through the Google Docs ones first. Okay, so question one is it possible to start a new OpenOnDemand session from a terminal, not from a web interface? Vlad, I don't know what that would look like. The whole purpose of this is for it to be a GUI web interface. So I don't know if you want to unmute and maybe clarify what you, sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So I have two questions, and they are interconnected. So in my current role, I helped people to troubleshoot their problem on a cluster. So when they start OpenOnDemand, they have something running in the active session, and they want me to look into it. So sometimes I need to get in, run in their environment, and try to replicate what they're doing. So I know it's possible, you probably know about it as well. FastX is another GUI interface. So it's possible to start a session, like log in on a system, get credentials for a user and become a user. And then as a user, start like a new session with FastX, then log into web interface, have this session open there, and then log into the session, and then work in the session.
Yep.
So I can troubleshoot the user's environment. So I would like to
I understand
something similar to it, like log into currently running session as a user, or start a new session being a user, and then log into it. So like those two questions are interconnected.
And Vlad, if I recall, you did post something on Discourse about this, did you not?
Sorry, say it again?
You've posted this on our Discourse board, haven't you? I thought there was a discussion already underway about this.
Yeah, I met you at Perk and asked the same question and a similar question. So, and
and I think there's an ongoing conversation. So the short answer is, we hear you. I don't have a good solution right now. Off the top of my head, I know we've talked about a few things, and we have some ideas similar to what you just described. Another approach that we've been thinking about is, it looks like we're going to have support for running on demand within a Kubernetes container. And so there might be a way to connect to that Kubernetes container and see stuff. But the bottom line is I don't have an answer for you right now, but I know that we've documented this is something that we should think about and look at.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring it up because I need it every day. So it'll be nice to have it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I hear you loud and clear. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the first two questions. Third question here was, any examples of OpenOnDemand using non-STEM disciplines? Absolutely. Well, I guess it depends on how broad you consider STEM, STEM to be. But one that I absolutely can talk about is actually item number 16 on the screen right now, the Render app. We have a group at OSU called ACAD, the Advanced Center for Arts and Design, or Computer Arts and Design, or something like that. They do a lot of video game and movies and all kinds of stuff like that. And they use various things like Maya and Blender. We created a render app for them so that they could, basically submit to our system, use our system like they would a render farm to do various simulations and stuff. So that's one example that I know for sure. Trying to think off the top of my head if there's another one. We've got just general at OSC, we've got various clients in our College of Business. They're doing economic analysis or various business stuff. I don't know that you would traditionally consider that to be STEM. Some people might. And so they're doing stuff with like Stata is a good example. I've heard requests or people using things, very statistical analysis software on there. Does that answer your question? I don't know if you had other ones that you
Yes, thank you.
of it.
No, that gives me a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. And frankly, we want to hear more. this is exactly the kind of thing that if anybody else in the community has examples, I'd love to get them documented, because this is a big aspect of what we talked about to NSF about broader engagement and trying to make it so that it's making these resources accessible to non-traditional communities that don't use supercomputer resources normally. Okay, number 4, on-demand ever used for students' instruction? Yes, so the stats thing I just showed you, absolutely. So at OSC, we have something like 4 dozen different classes around the state that OSC and OnDemand are actively part of the actual syllabus. The stats course I showed you, that's about 300 or 400 students. So we regularly get stress tests where they're all in class, actively in class, 100 students in a session, logging into OnDemand from their iPads or their laptops, running our studio. And our client services oftentimes are on site there for the first week or so to help support. So yeah, absolutely. This is a very common thing, and happy to talk more, support that more if you want to learn more about things that we've done for that. And I know this is not just true at OSC, this is true at other institutions as well with OnDemand. Moving on to question 5, any instances of OpenOnDemand on IBM Power 9 systems? I think there's a Virginia, so that's something that my colleague Bob Setledge at Virginia Tech is very engaged with. I think they've got it running on a Power 9 system, but don't hold me to that. I can connect you to them if you want. I know that we are in discussions with IBM. IBM has asked us about supporting not just Power 9, but also LSF, better support for LSF. And so we've basically said, yeah, we want to do this. Would you guys be willing to offer some help? They've responded, and this is like literally within the past 2 weeks. They've responded back saying, yes, we're happy to engage. So I don't know what that's going to look like. So to be clear, we have LSF support. There are aspects of LSF we don't have good support for, and that we need their support, their help on. And part of the reason we don't have good support is because it's not a very big community that's been asking for LSF support. So, but yeah, I should also mention, and I apologize, I didn't mention before. So the default install, and sorry for the construction if you're hearing that they're back at it, they're done with lunch. Default install for this is RPM. However, we do have an Ansible role that you can use to install from source. So I know that people have installed OnDemand on non-RPM type systems out there. Okay. Why did you have to use Nginx when you have an Apache instance? So the Apache instance is only serving as that initial connection to put you to the authentication. Once you have that, it's purely acting as a reverse proxy. So everything that you saw me in the live demo is not Apache. That's being served up by Nginx. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of technical reasons behind that I don't really want to get into, but I will tell you, if you want to know all the gory details, let me see if I can switch over here real quick. If you go to our website, we have a publication, this one right here, the ACM SysPros Deploying and Managing an OpenOnDemand Instance. This one goes into really gory details on behind the scenes, what we're doing. Oh, it looks like this is just the PDF for it. I'm sorry, there's a corresponding paper on here. I want to say it's maybe, I think it's maybe, shoot, I'm sorry. I'll find it and then make sure that we post on. But one of these is a technical paper that really's got all the gory details. Okay, how did you tune the network transfer to be faster via web interface? We didn't. That's the interesting thing about it. It has to do with the fact that the protocols for web secure SSL, for some reason, are inherently faster, better, more efficient than the default protocols for just doing like an SFTP. So we have, like many centers, we have a dedicated host that is a SFTP, SCP host for file transfers that people want to connect to, so they're not connecting to a login node. And we've tuned that using all the general requirements and suggestions for SFTP, SCTP tuning. And yet that is still slower than the host that coming through web. Now, one of my colleagues thinks that part of the speed is due to the fact that, as I mentioned, we are serving up OnDemand on a VMware virtual machine, and as a result, he says maybe because we have a little bit of an SSD in there, that's helping it a little bit. I don't know if that's truly it or not, there's really nothing special on there. Okay, next question was, what were the drivers for OSC to deploy OpenOnDemand? What gaps? Great question. I should have mentioned earlier that we've been developing this in some form or fashion for over a decade. So the quick history of this is go back to around 2007. We got a request, like many people were getting a request for a targeted science-specific gateway or portal for a specific app, and we built that. And then we got another one, and we built that. And after about 2 or 3 of those, we said, hey, this is stupid. Why are we, from the ground up, building each of these little gateways, these little targeted apps? Let's build a platform to do it. And so we started doing that in-house. We started talking to our colleagues and peer institutions about that, and they said, this is great. Can you open source it? And we said, we hadn't thought about that, but sure. And that's where we're at. So the basic gaps were requests for graphical, science-specific gateways or portals, and let's not reinvent the wheel each time. How do you handle interactive job scheduling in a mixed compute environment? Do your clusters have reserved allocations or VDI interactive use? Yes, so we have, for each of our clusters, we have set aside, it's either 2 or 4 nodes that we call our quick batch queue. And those are shared nodes. So when I was showing you that live demo that we pulled up the virtual desktop or the MATLAB, it was actually because I was asking for shared, just one core, it was going on to that quick batch, which it starts very, 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 very quickly. And depending upon, if you're asking for Owens versus Pitzer, you'll get on the right one. So yeah, that's how we handle it. Now, there's options I didn't show you to request full nodes. And you can just get into a full regular compute node. You might have to wait a little longer in the queue. But yes, we do have a very small, it's not large at all, very small reservation there.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Integration with LSF, yes. We do support all of the, as far as I'm aware of, all of the known schedulers. So Slurm, PBS, LSF, SGE. Our biggest problem is that the 2 biggest ones are PBS and Slurm, so that's our best support there. SGE and LSF, we have to rely upon other people to help us develop and refine that. So if you can help with improved LSF, we'd love to hear that. Can you speak to the relationship with jobs that run in Docker containers? I'm trying to speed up a little bit because I'm being conscious of the fact that we're about 7 minutes left. I can stay on past 1, but I want to try to hit all these. Speaking of the relationship with jobs that run in Docker containers. Yeah, so basically for those that were doing either Docker or Kubernetes containers, again, it's no different than if a client were to be running this. The question is, hey, can you do this from a command line? You go to the command line, Yep, you log in, you launch a Docker or Kubernetes, and it fires up. Same thing's happening behind the scenes, that you're just running a Docker instance that you're then pointing to and seeing via the Nginx and the reverse proxy. So I don't know if that answered, if you had a more specific question, Matt, on that, but there's really nothing special.
I think that's fine. I think from my perspective, we're imagining a job scheduler having integration with Docker in some capacity, but I believe that since under the hood, there's just some amount of configuration or wrapping to be done to talk to the job scheduler, that the containers would sort of come for free with that. So I think that addresses
exactly. That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah, we're basically submitting a job to the scheduler that launches a Docker or a Kubernetes container. That's exactly what's happening. Yep.
Got it.
By the way, I should mention, you don't have to use a scheduler. So this item number 1 on the screen right now, Linux host adapter, that is for situations where you don't want to use a scheduler. You just want to run it via SSH or on the local host. So that is something that is available for beta testing now, if you want. Long-term sustainability, yes. So pretty simple. First off, OnDemand is integral to OSC's client service support, and we have budgeted, and our director has said that long-term we are going to ensure that we have at least 1 FTE of a developer funded via state funds to support it, because we need this. We've heard similar things from other institutions, that they are starting to integrate this, and they're going to support it as well. And we've gotten offers from various other institutions to help with that. Obviously, we have this NSF grant that goes through 2023. I've also haven't really mentioned, but there's multiple commercial companies that are now engaged. And NVIDIA is very engaged. They are running this on their internal cluster. Intel is starting to stand up support for the project internally. We have a company called Nortech that there's a case study about Nortech support, and they've done internal developer support. So the bottom line is, I think that the long-term sustainability is going to be a combination of interest from commercial entities that have this as part of their product portfolio they deploy, interest from various HPC centers that are going to provide support because it's key to their operation. And then obviously long-term, we want to continue to get grants and stuff from NSF and others on there. Mentioned about Google Cloud OnDemand. So Bala, I don't know all the details. I will share that we are working with an entity called Cloudy Cluster, if you're familiar with them. They have their CCQ scheduler in the cloud. Google obviously is engaged with us and has provided us a very generous support. And then SGI. I really don't know enough about this. I'm sorry. I know that basically the idea is you're going to be able to supposedly be able to go to the Google Cloud Marketplace and click on, say, Cloudy Cluster. You want to fire up a Cloudy Cluster, virtual cluster with OpenOnDemand front end. You'll just go click on that if you want, and it'll just launch. I'm not a cloud expert. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense or not. I don't know, Paula, if you're still on, or does that help?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll
Okay.
follow up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and our intention is to obviously do the same thing for AWS. I guess what I would say is, if you have suggestions or requirements of what this should look like from an end user scenario, we'd love to hear that, because we don't know. I do see a question in the chat on do I have a tutorial on how to set up AweSim? Not AweSim. Remember, AweSim is just a brand name for us. But if you're asking how to set it up to look where it's got those icons, yeah, yes and no. So we're happy to chat offline, but that's something that is a configuration that you can currently do with OnDemand on there. Okay. I think I hit all the questions.
Wow.
Any
that was
other?
amazing.
I'm trying. Any ones?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for going into a fantastic in-depth view. This has been great. Thank you.
Wonderful. And please, 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 if you are running it, if you're thinking about running it, let me know so I can put your organization name up there because I want to report this back. And don't hesitate to reach out to us because we want to help you deploy this. We want to support it.
Will do. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Alan. Thanks, everyone.
My pleasure. Everybody stay healthy, please.
Yes. Yes. Thanks. I'll stop the recording.